Hello friends! Today I am talking about the newest release from xTool, which is the xTool M1 Ultra. This is a super cool machine that has a ton of features and a ton of possibilities. So despite sharing a name with its predecessor, the original M1, this machine does entirely different things and opens up a lot more doors. So spoiler alert, I really love it. But I'll talk about why here in a minute. Now, as a full disclosure, xTool did send me this machine a few weeks before its launch date to test it out and see what I can make and then share it with you all. So today we're just going to talk about what the machine does, what it doesn't do, and help you decide whether it's the right machine for you. It might be, it might not. So I think what makes this machine extra special is it's not just a laser. So xTool, of course, has a line of lasers. And the original M1 added, the first 2-in-1 function where it also had a blade. So you could cut vinyl and you could also engrave wood, which is really cool. This machine takes that concept and expands on it even further. So there are 4-in-1 ways you can use this machine. And actually each of those 4-in-1 functions has additional sub-functions. So tons of things this machine can do. It can engrave wood, laser wood, cut wood, of course. Also, it has an Inkjet module, which is my favorite thing. So that means you can print using inkjet ink within the machine. So not just, on paper, but you can print on canvas and on wood, which I did, and it turned out really cool. So I love that. It also has a blade, of course, like the original M1, so you can still cut vinyl, you can cut felt. It has a kind of a thicker blade, and that one is used to cut, kind of really thin balsa wood, but you also could just use the laser for that, so I haven't really used that other blade just yet. This machine also has a pen holder, so it can draw and do handwriting and all that stuff. It also has a foil tip, meaning it uses pressure to add foil to designs on your wood, on your paper. And when you don't put the foil underneath, it does that kind of embossing look that's really pretty. And so, there's just a ton that you can do with this machine. There's also a rotary blade. So if you are into fabric, you'll love that you can cut fabric with this machine. I did not try that out yet because I'm not really a fabric person yet, but I love that that function is there. And the way that you switch between all these modules is really cool. It's something called Easy Swap, and I'll show you how that works. But essentially, the little laser box inside clips out, and then you snap in your inkjet or whichever other modules you'd like to use. So that's kind of the overview of this machine. Now let's dig into the more specifics. So first, let's talk about the appearance. Of course, you can see it's got the white base and the orange lid. Now this orange lid is made so you can look through. It's transparent and you can see your designs without hurting your eyes. So it is a class 1 laser, which means, it's as safe as you can get, pretty much. The bottom is sleek, it's white, it's pretty. It's got 2 buttons on the front, one for framing and one that you use to start and stop your projects. And I'll talk a little bit about the framing part later. But just know that this other button here, you can use to pause your project. So say, you're working on something and your kid calls you from the other room, you gotta go help them do something. You can just hit pause and safely leave your machine, come back later and restart it. The size isn't super teeny, but for what it does, it's actually, packs a lot of function into a relatively small package. The exterior is 24.5 inches wide, 19.5 inches deep, 7 inches tall. But when you add the lid, of course, you're going to need, more clearance for this. And you will need to access this lid to get into your projects. And the laser bed itself is 20 by 14 inches, but the actual working area is just under 12 by 12. It's 11.8 by 11.8. And so that extra bed size does come in handy. For example, say you have a cutting board that you want to engrave, and it's got kind of one of those long handles, so you can put the entire thing in and then just make sure that the actual cutting board piece, not the handle, is in the workable area. It also does have an additional accessory you can buy. That's a riser base, and so that's going to lift this entire thing up if you want to do things that are deeper. But for, as it is, you're limited to working on things that are about 1 inch thick. So just like any other laser, this machine will need to be vented properly. So it's got a really cool feature in the back where you have the hose that snaps into place, which is a lot nicer than the former model where it had this kind of black, almost like a dryer vent looking hose that you had to pin into place, and it was hard to get on. But I really like this new one. I like how easy it is to change the filter. So you can see there's a little cotton filter, and you can easily swap it in and out as you create your projects. You can either vent the end of that hose out a window, out a door, which I have done with my other machines. But with this one, xTool sent me the desktop air purifier, and so I use that. And so it just simply plug right into that, and it sat on my desk. It's a really cute little size. It fits very well on my desk, which is great. So I like that option a lot, but if you don't want to spring for the air purifier, then definitely just make sure you have the end of that pipe vented out the window to get those fumes out of your house. Let's chat a little bit about what each of the modules do, because that's what makes this machine so cool. So we'll start with the laser module. The laser can come in either a 10 watt or a 20 watt. I got the 10 watt. If you have the budget for it, I think it's an extra $300 or $400 for the 20 watt. I would definitely recommend it. It just adds more power. It lets you, kind of have a little bit more options for cutting. But the 10 watt worked well for what I used it with, which was mostly 3mm plywood sheets. It can engrave or cut that just fine. It also has something called scoring, which is kind of like an outline, a very clean, dark line that it burns into the wood. And it also can engrave on materials like leather, wood, glass, rocks, even paper. Someone said, I haven't tried that, it makes me a little nervous, but apparently paper and metal. You also can cut through up to 6mm thick material, such as, wood, which again, I was using mostly 3mm, but you can bump it up to 6mm. You can also cut cardboard, corkboard, felt, and you can cut certain types of acrylic, but I will say this is a diode laser, and just because of the nature of a diode laser, you cannot cut all acrylic. So if you want to cut like clear or semi-transparent or like blue, this machine really can't do it. No diode can. So if you want to cut all kinds of acrylic, you'll really need to get a CO2 laser. Now those are generally a lot more expensive. I personally have the xTool P2 CO2 laser, and it's amazing. And I cut all kinds of acrylic like butter. But I did not test cutting acrylic with this machine yet, just because I was more focused on kind of the wood and the printing and other things. But I just want you to know that if you have your heart set on acrylic projects, particularly clear, transparent, semi-transparent blues, this is not going to work for you. Now let's talk about the blade module I mentioned before. It's just similar to the M1. It has a blade that can sit in the housing, so you'll have to choose which blade you want to work with. I worked with the fine point blade, and that's the one that's similar to the M1's original blade. So with that, you can cut paper, cardboard, sticker paper, vinyl, HTV vinyl, so heat transfer vinyl, and that worked really well for me. It cut very smoothly. It was easy to weed, no complaints on that end. And then there's the cutting blade. And so that one is used to cut thicker materials. Again, I didn't try it, but you can cut leather sheets, thicker felt, very thin pieces of wood under 2mm. So like that really thin basswood, you can cut with that, or you could just use the laser, which is what I would opt for. Also chipboard and craft foam. And then again, there's the rotary blade, which you can use to cut cotton fabric, denim, linen. You can't cut it super small. So if you want something that's really intricate designs, it may not work great for you. But if you want to cut kind of bigger outlines and shapes, it works great. I've heard. I have not tried, but I've heard from other people that it works fantastic. And then last but not least, for the blade side, there's a foil transfer tip. And so you can use that to add foil to cardstock, to wood, to paper, things like that. And when you're not having that foil sheet down, it does do embossing, like on cardstock, that really, kind of resin effect. And then my favorite is the Inkjet module. So when I heard it had an inkjet printer inside, I didn't really understand how it would work or what I would use it for. It's certainly not something that you want to, print your everyday, paper on. It's definitely more for crafting. You could if you wanted to, but you have to lay each sheet individually. So for me, I absolutely fell in love with the Inkjet module. It's my favorite. And so with this module, you can print all kinds of material. So like wood, paper, canvas, sticker sheets, inkjet compatible, HDV transfer paper. So if you wanted to, print out a colorful design on your HTV transfer paper and then press that onto like a shirt or a tote, you can. The inkjet does not work on anything that's super glossy. That's just the nature of inkjet printing. It can't adhere to that surface. So like glossy stickers, glossy, whatever, it's not going to work. Glossy wood, things like that. It does work on painted wood. So I tried that out. I painted some wood white just to see and printed on top, and it worked great. Inkjet also does not print in white. So anything that, is a white design on your computer is just basically going to be whatever the color of the material is. So if it's wood, it'll be like wood, etc. And also, the inkjet ink is not waterproof. If you get like a splash on it, I think it's okay. But if it gets wet and you kind of rub at it, it does start to come off. So it's not recommended for anything that could get wet. So for example, I printed out on some wood rounds to make coasters. And so I need to go back and seal that with some kind of waterproof sealer on top to keep that ink from running. And last but not least, there's a pen module. So it has a little adapter that fits in there, and then pens that you can put in, and you can use those to write on paper, on wood, cardstock, even on fabric, some people have said. And so, I use that to write in some notebooks just to make it look like I had really pretty handwriting in a bullet journal, because I don't. And it was great. It was really cool. So it does have, xTool does give you 8 different fine tip pens, with the machine, but they have said that it's third-party compatible, so you can really use any pen you want as long as it fits in that holder. And I think, again, what makes this so fun is that switching between the modules is so easy. So they have something called Easy Swap, and you literally like flick over this gray bar, pull the module out, and then put the new one you want in, push it until it clicks, and lock it back up. So super easy to switch in between different types of modules. It takes literally 3 seconds or less. And what's even more exciting for me is like, I love having options. I like to make lots of different crafts. And so just knowing that, in the future, they're going to be able to come out with more modules and more options. And so instead of buying a whole new machine, you can just buy, a new module and stick it in your machine. And so I think there's going to be a lot of cool things available down the line. I don't know. I'm assuming, just knowing how innovative xTool is, that, we have more cool things to come that will work great with this machine. So stay tuned. Now let's talk about accuracy, because if you've ever used a laser before, you know how frustrating it can be to spend all this time making a design, and then you go to, run the machine and it's off center, and you've wasted your time and your materials. And so what this machine does not have is a built-in camera. So the original M1 as well as the P2 have built-in cameras, so you can have a live preview of your materials. However, the cameras aren't always super accurate, especially on the original M1. They have some distortion, some fisheye, because you're trying to get like a wider shot with the small lens, so it's a little bit bowed out. And so they decided when they made this machine to forego the camera and use something else for accuracy. And so there's actually 2 ways you can look at positioning. The first one is called Snapshot Preview, and it essentially uses an app on your smartphone. You come over to the machine, you take a snapshot. It's going to tell you to keep certain visual guides in line when you take the picture, and then you send it to your computer, and it gives you a QR code. You scan it and it pops up on your computer, and you can see the material here and then work on positioning, your work on top of that. It works well. You can also craft, and design on the xTool app on your phone. I personally don't like designing on phones. I'm definitely more of like a desktop laptop person, and so I did not use that feature, but that is an option. I would think for really simple designs that would work fine, but again, I need like the bigger screen, so I want to see more. Okay, so the second method of making sure your designs are aligned and line up perfectly is something very cool called pinpoint positioning. Now, this technology came out on a different xTool machine, and they brought it to this one instead of that camera. And so it basically uses your laser's red positioning beam. So when you have the laser head and you look down, there's like a red X marks the spot kind of thing going on. And uses that to let you navigate and outline what you're creating so you can make sure it's lined out perfectly. And so you basically go to the processing tab, you tell the design software what shape you're making, so square, rectangle, circle, etc. And then it will give you prompts on where to guide the beam to. So it'll say like the top left corner of your rectangle, for example, and then the bottom right. So you'll move the laser beam manually to those spots. And then once you do, you hit this button right here for framing. And then it'll have you move to the next point, you hit that button again, and then it'll build you a super accurate kind of outline showing you where that is. And then you can position, your items accordingly. And so it works very well. Very, very well. I was actually kind of shocked because the M1 was, it was accurate, but I never felt like I could engrave a toothpick like some people did. But with this machine, I sat down and did a bunch of pencils. It took me about 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds to get it positioned and to put my little phrase on there and go. And so I just was kind of blown away. It was really cool to see how accurate it was with that tiny little working space. So big fan of the pinpoint positioning. And you could use both, in conjunction if you like me, you want to see that visual of the pencil or whatever you're making. And then also make sure you're, in line with that framing method too. Let's talk about what I loved and what I didn't love. So what I loved was that easy swap where I talked about with the modules where you can flip them out and have that that inkjet, and then have the laser and, the blades. And so I love options when it comes to crafting. And so it's really fun to think you could just swap out all these modules, and they're small. So it's about this big, and you can use that, easily stick it in your drawer. So rather than buying a whole new machine every single time, you just buy a new module, which is very cool. I loved the inkjet. I talked about that. The blade functionality was really fun. I liked cutting out vinyl with this machine and, doing little signs and labels. Very easy to do, very quick. That positioning accuracy with that pinpoint technology was awesome. Again, just very accurate, very smooth. And then it was just fun. This machine's just fun. It's super cool to just think of all these different ideas you can do. So I, printed something on wood, and then I laser cut something to go on top of that printed background. And so I just had a lot of fun creating projects, creating crafts, kind of daydreaming. Definitely, something I went back for again and again, and kept wanting to come back, and I kept thinking of ideas and then coming back and doing them. And so I definitely loved just all the options, all the versatility. Just had a lot of fun with it. And then what would be on my wish list? So again, there's no built-in camera. I liked being able just to refresh and get that quick preview with the other tools, the other lasers. Again, the camera is not the most accurate way to position, but it was just kind of easy. Instead of using an app, standing up, taking a picture, not a huge deal, but in my dream world, it would have the live camera too. And also there's no built-in air assist with this. Like the original M1, it is an additional purchase. I highly recommend purchasing it. So this one is compatible with the Smart Air Assist, which I have not tried, but I think I will purchase after using this machine. There's just a little bit of charring that happens on the edges, not a huge deal, but the Air Assist does make your cut faster and makes them just a little bit cleaner. And now that I've used the Air Assist on the other M1, I know that it makes a big difference to me. And so I think it's worth the additional purchase. And if you do opt for M1 Ultra's Deluxe bundle, it does include Air Assist. And so that's definitely something to think about when you're looking at which package to get. Again, I think that's probably the number one accessory I would put with this machine is the Air Assist. If you want to do taller projects, then I would recommend getting that riser stand, and also if you want to do any, engraving on like tumblers or anything that's round, there's something called an RA2 Pro that allows you to do that, but you would have to have that riser to go with it. So there are some different options for accessories. I'll link to those in the description box below. But just as it is, how it comes, this really is a fun machine to use for the everyday crafter. If you wanted to start a small business, I think that would be good. If you have a high volume business, I think you would definitely need something with a little bit more power, a little bit more speed, something like the xTool P2. But I love this machine. I think it was fun. It's pretty. So my final verdict is 2 thumbs up. I actually am putting away the M1 original for now and giving this one its spot on my desk because I only have so much space in my craft room, unfortunately. And so, yeah, this machine is just a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what they come up with next. But yeah, thanks so much for watching.